Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, 3 Degrees of Love. This is your girl Alana here. So, I wanted to do a special video here. So I live in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, of course. And one of the things that we have in Canada is, of course, it's what we called Bell Let's Talk Day, which is coming up on January 26th. And it's something that goes on annually. It's a huge campaign in regards to mental health awareness and sort of trying to break the stigma of it and bring forth and shed more light of the awareness of how it affects all of us. And of course, it's a very important topic to discuss. And especially, in light of all the current global events that we've, been experiencing, this is a topic that is affecting everyone, a lot more in the last several years. Not only for those that, have already, been struggling and already have, their own concerns that they've been battling with, but even those that may not, have before identified with, having mental health issues and things like that, in light of the, current circumstances, has really been impacting us and our overall health, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and things like that. And because it's also a topic that personally hits home for me. I have had my own struggles as well, and every day continue to struggle and live and survive. So as I said, it's something that is very important, for all of us. And my love for spirituality, and serving others and helping, others and being of service to my community, and those around me, has definitely been the inspiration for creating this project. And so I wanted to, this was, I guess, my way of sort of not only bringing forth the awareness, but also sort of connecting spirituality. It's something that, the thought came to mind, and of course, wanted to get together with like-minded individuals, and other people that I found very inspiring and creative, to sort of, have a discussion. So, full disclosure, Bell Let's Talk Day is a campaign that runs annually. This video is nowhere, it is in no way sponsored or affiliated with the campaign of Bell Let's Talk. This is something of my own creation and my own sort of making, but it's something that I would say is sort of inspired, lovingly inspired by the campaign, and me wanting to sort of contribute to it in my own way. So maybe, hopefully, one day at some point, those that are involved with the campaign may see this and, may in the future may want to, create a partnership or sponsor this. But for now, this is definitely not sponsored or affiliated. It is just me being inspired and wanting to bring forth awareness, and what that means to me. So with that being said, I want to thank you, and I do everything that I do. Everything that I am is because of love. It is who I am, what my value is, and what I stand for. Thus is the name of my channel, 3 Degrees of Love. And yeah, you know, and of course wanting to create a community, you know, that is surrounded with that, which is you know, bringing forth people together, having the opportunity to shed light and highlight and celebrate, you know, like-minded individuals and creators and people of all kinds that have some sort of contribution, and of course, you know, combining that with spirituality, in a very sort of non-denominational, openly accepting sort of way. So I hope that with that you would enjoy what I have to offer. And if you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thank you for being here. And I hope that you like what I have to offer on this platform, and will continue to share my videos, and like them, and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. All right, so with all that, I want to say thanks, and I hope to see you soon. And until then, continue to live, listen, and learn, all in the name of love. Bye, guys. All right. So thank you all for joining me on my channel today, 3 Degrees of Love. I know you guys, you know, just before I hit record, I, you know, was thanking you guys for all being here and taking the time out of your incredibly busy lives, and are in different time zones, you know, and, you know, with us right now, we have 2 Americans and 2 Canadians. And, you know, and this is all, you know, a discussion about mental health and spirituality. And really all of this is, you know, I, you know, came with the idea to do this all in honor of Bell Let's Talk Day, which is in no way affiliated with what I'm doing or sponsored. Maybe in the future that might happen, but this was just lovingly inspired by the campaign, you know, that is, you know, our sort of Canadian awareness annually event, which occurs on the 26th of January. And Bell has like a really, you know, big campaign and raising awareness and money, and, you know, all in honor of mental health, and, you know, in support of that. So again, thank you guys for all being here. So, you know, there are supposed to be 2 other participants, but, you know, they haven't come in yet. So if they do, you know, join in the progress of our discussion, then by all means, I will welcome them lovingly with open arms. So so just to get started, of course, Alana, I'm in Toronto. This is my channel, 3 Degrees of Love. And our next Canadian, who is actually in the same city with me, and lovingly, I'll let you introduce yourself and give us a quick background on who you are and, you know, your accomplishments so far?
Sure. My name is Malumir Logan. I'm the creatrix of Chakra Healing Tarot. I'm also a Reiki master, and I've been in love with tarot for a long time. It's a long-term committed relationship. I also work as a public policy professional and a host of other things. And my deck, in terms of accomplishments that you asked about, it was successfully crowdfunded last year. So it's wild to think. You know how for folks who have apps on their phone, photo apps, it shows you, oh, a year ago, and a year ago I was seeing, you know, these photos I was taking of getting excited about the campaign and how nervous I was at the time, being really scared about what if I can't make this a reality. So I'd say that that was a really significant accomplishment last year. That's me.
And what a successful accomplishment that was. And so exciting. All right. And we'll start with the top of our neighbors from across the way and the other side of the border, Murphy.
Hi, I'm Murphy Pines. I'm an artist living in LA, and I'm also the creator of I'm Here. It's an oracle deck for emotional care. And I just last week I got successfully funded on Kickstarter. Really excited about it, and I'm happy to be here and to meet all of so many lovely people.
Thank you. And let's you know, give it credit where credit is due. You didn't just make your goal, you surpassed it and unlocked all the stretch goals, and blew all the stretch goals out of the water. So, you know, we're so exciting for your deck. And I cannot wait for it and to be able to work with it. It's like we were actually just talking about it just last week, and the video is up on my channel, you know, where we're discussing your deck and how it came to be. And I remember even saying the characters in the deck reminded me of Casper, the friendly ghost, and how much that sort of played to like my inner child and how soothing and wonderful that was. So thank you. And last but not least at the moment, we have...
Oh, okay. Sorry, my cat's meowing outside of the door, so I keep muting myself. I don't want it to distract. I'm Kara Simons. I'm Kara Simons. I'm a writer. I have a background in journalism, and I'm also a part-time attorney. And I actually have not been using decks for that long. It started at the end of 2013, I believe. And so I haven't had a lifelong experience of using cards, but they've been a really big part of my own journey outside of some pretty strict religious confines in my youth. And so I created the Prairie Majesty Oracle with an illustrator who lives near me named Amy Putney Koenig. And we were crowdfunded on Kickstarter in 2020. And we sold out last year and got picked up by Hay House. That's coming out in March. Yay! And I actually created 2 decks before Prairie Majesty, but I was kind of in the spiritual closet and didn't really do much to get them out there. And so one of them I'm actually revamping right now and adding cards and working with an illustrator to hopefully do something on a grander scale.
Okay.
And I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I have 3 little girls. So that's a big part of my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so actually, and just so you know, you're the next one I'm after to have on my channel, so we can talk more about all your projects and your success and all of that.
I love that. Thank you.
You know, getting to know of the Prairie Majesty Oracle, and the fact that, you know, it's now coming mass market. Super excited to be able to get it at an affordable price and to be able to work with it. So that is definitely something really exciting. And I definitely... Oh,
yay! Hey, Linda.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hey.
And so we're just in the middle of introducing everybody. So Linda, if you are ready and just sort of want to jump in and just introduce yourself and talk about your accomplishments, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Hey, I'm Linda. Wilder Heart Studio is sort of the studio that I would like to be known for, I guess. And then I made Northern Animal Tarot. So I made a tarot deck and it has animals in it instead of humans, and that's what I do. And I make art. Yeah.
And so your deck was actually, so you have a first edition, which was successfully funded back in
Last year.
so it was last year.
October of last year, yeah.
No,
The
the first edition.
Yeah, the first edition was in October of, the year before last year, because now we're in a new year, right?
Yes. So 2020. And then
Yes.
and then of course, because of the success of the campaign and all of that, you just in October, as you were saying, had another successful campaign for the second edition.
Yeah, so I just ran a second edition. I just changed the colors, made a few little changes to the backgrounds and the backs. And then, yeah, everyone was excited. So it got funded, which is great.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And of course, anybody want to see that interview, that's also on my channel, where we
fun.
sort of go through the, talking, of course, about the creation, and then, actually flipping through the cards to see the differences between the first and the second. So, and of course, everybody's info will be linked down in the description box. So my next question after this is, I want to know from everyone, how has having a spiritual practice been helpful to you? And maybe just sort of giving a brief rundown of what your personal approach is. Kind of wanting to see, how, what are the similarities and the differences between everybody? So I guess I will start. For me, as I've kind of mentioned before in other videos, I still identify as a Christian. I was raised Roman Catholic. Spirituality has always been a part of my life, more so on the religious aspect. But, in my upbringing and my experience and things like that, I more so identify with the idea of just sort of being, spiritual, globally speaking, and not really, the idea of me still identifying as a Christian is really only for the one fact that I believe in Jesus Christ. That's it. And the fact that he exists. So that's really it. Everything else, I've always had a love of cards and things that are textile, and finding the joy out of working with decks and tarot, and sort of bringing that forth as part of my spiritual practice. It has also been very helpful in sort of healing, aspects of myself, and allowing me the opportunity to explore and journey within a lot more. And so, yeah, I work with my cards on a daily basis, and I tend to rotate through them, and kind of sometimes seasonally, working with different decks, and I work with multiple decks, and I love incense and candles and crystals. So yeah, and that's me. So anybody else can jump in by all means.
Next, if no one else wants to jump in, I have ever since I was very, very young. I think I was spiritual before I was ever religious. I just always felt very, very spiritually connected as a very young child. And I remember being able to see energy and see auras, like with my physical eyes as a young child. I could see them. Can't anymore, not with my physical eyes. But and I remember thinking that that's obviously just how plants and trees look, right? But over the years I did there was a lot of religious upbringing, and in some ways there has been a lot from that I've healed from. In other ways there are still elements that I do still embrace. Having said that, I think anyone who I don't think that the way that I practice now would be at all considered remotely in line with that kind of religious practice. But what my practice is now is that I do have relationship with the divine and with specific divinity. But what's crucial to me is my relationship with my ancestors. I am a mixed settler, and part of my heritage is Chinese. And growing up, we would go regularly to Hong Kong to visit family, and ancestral veneration was a part of the practice. And it was actually such a cool experience being in Hong Kong, because my Chinese family was both Buddhist as well as Catholic, even though I wasn't raised either Buddhist nor Catholic. And getting to see how that combined with Chinese traditional cultural practices that were actually neither Buddhist nor Catholic. So I've really embraced a lot of that. And so now I have regular, ancestral honoring that I do. I have weekly practices, I have seasonal, but I also use the tarot to connect and heal my ancestral lineage, as well as just get better insights and to connect with the divine. Also, I use things like candles or making different kinds of beverages, whether it's water or tea, to honor my ancestors, making certain kinds of foods to honor them, but also, candles and other kinds of plant-based, whether it's natural smokes or incenses, as well as candles and crystals to honor other divinity. So it's a very eclectic practice, but in answer to your question about the connection with mental health, it's helped me to feel very, very grounded, because during times of such uncertainty, the thing that I am certain about is these practices and my connection to my ancestors and the divine.
Very nice. Thank you. Anybody else?
So Malumir, I'm actually, I grew up in Hong Kong for 10 years. Like, yeah, from when I was 10 to like basically starting college, I lived in Hong Kong. So it's just nice to hear.
That's so cool. I miss it.
Yeah, the food. Oh, the food.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah, no, I like dream of dim sum all the time.
I love
similarly, I think I had sort of an eclectic upbringing. I'm Korean, like my parents are Korean, and I grew up mostly in, I guess like I moved around a lot. So I started out in the US and then to Korea and then to Hong Kong. So I have this like wild mix of like all these things. And with Korea, we also have the ancestral like worship and veneration. And so I've been recently starting to connect with that too. I think I was sort of like alienated from it for a while, because there's a lot of like sexism that got rooted into it somehow, like into the practices that kind of made me feel uncomfortable about it. But I realized like I could reclaim all of that in a way that made sense for me. And my mother growing up was extremely emotionally abusive, but also like kind of in similar ways that some people experience religious trauma, I felt with like my mom's approach to spirituality. So I was very familiar with a bunch of different things growing up, from like Reiki to like, my mom basically devoured the entire spiritual, like if like a new age bookstore, like everything like available. We did yoga, we like meditated, we like used tarot and like past life regression. At like 7, I was doing past life regressions. And then something happened where my mom completely just, oh my god, stop me if I'm oversharing, but she had a total sort of mental breakdown that like, and like went into psychosis, and a lot of it was spurred on by her like spiritual beliefs all mixed in together, and it became this scary thing that I was like, I need to get as far away from this as possible. And so for 5 years in my early adulthood, I was like a staunch like atheist, like only science, like if you can't explain it with numbers, it's not real. And then as I started therapy, I started like reading about psychology and like, you know, the power of like the subconscious has on, you know, how we navigate the world and how we view ourselves. And eventually I came back to spirituality again through Carl Jung. I would just read a bunch of Carl Jung and I was like, all of this makes sense. Why, like, you know, like the mind is so what's the word, difficult to understand to begin with, like, and all of these practices have been going on for basically as long as we've been alive. So like, why can't I just go back to this, like, and there's no danger in that. And the difference between me and like my mother was I think just people. I've surrounded myself with people and connection and the community, and being able to approach spirituality in a way that feels healing. And yeah, that's, sorry if I went on too long. That was sort of the
No,
whole
not
thing.
at all. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So heavily sort of psychology based, but then I started sort of getting into pagan practices, and I work with like Hecate, and also with my ancestors, and kind of mixing in everything that resonates with me. Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess we're going in order. So you're next.
Oh, sure. Well, I sort of had, it's really interesting, by the way, just getting to hear how you guys all landed at this place of wanting to create a deck. Oh, Linda, you have a bird. That's amazing. I grew up in an extremely religious environment. Unlike some of you who mentioned you were spiritual first and then had some exposure to religion, my parents and all of their ancestors going back for many generations were Mormons, like hardcore, true blue, doing the whole thing. And my parents had the extraordinary courage when I was 8 to say, this is not for us, we're leaving. But it created this huge schism in me and in our extended family. And so ever since I was 8, my whole worldview shifted. And my parents, you know, it took them time to unpack all the layers of what they had been indoctrinated with for so many years. And so they brought out a lot of the doctrine, and that's how they raised me and my siblings. We never went to church. We never had like that church community that was the part I always wanted. But we did have a lot of everything that we did in our family was somehow tied back to these religious beliefs. And so that was a really saturated way to grow up. And a lot of those beliefs are based on that you yourself, you need this intermediary to have a relationship with a God or a source or some sort of spiritual deity. And so when I completely abandoned all of that about 10 years ago, it was this amazing freedom that I experienced, because I'd spent my whole life feeling like these beliefs dictated how I had to view the world and how I had to view other people. So it was really liberating to cut off all of that and just decide that I don't know. I'm a seeker. I don't know. And so I went through this period of time that was really vulnerable, where I didn't really know what I could trust. And I had to rewire myself for believing that I did have access to source all by myself, that I didn't need anybody else, that I could connect internally and get answers, that I could trust my guidance, that I could trust my intuition, that I could get help when I needed it. And so for me, becoming a parent was a big part of that journey. I had really difficult pregnancies where I had hyperemesis gravidarum, where you're like puking all the time. And I was just bedridden for months, and it was really hard. And during those really dark, depressing days for me, when I just wanted to die, I had to start finding my way back to hope and believing that there was something more. And so for me, that was around the time that I started using cards, using oracle decks, started exploring a lot of, I just devoured any kind of past life books that I could read, or anything about people who had a near-death experience. I was just hungry for evidence that there was more, and I wanted it to be first person. And so I'm kind of going on and on, but all of that is to say, for me, using cards is just a tool to help me trust myself more, and to confirm the answers that I'm already getting inside. And so it's been a really great mirror for me. And because of my experience growing up, it's really, really important to me to always respect everybody's autonomy and sovereignty. I really believe that each of us is an aspect of source, an aspect of this, grand, intelligent consciousness, and that we're all here to have different experiences and different beliefs and different lives, so that we can learn whatever our spirit wanted to come here and learn. And so after a lifetime of being taught to judge everybody else, it's been amazing to just step into this mental space of like honoring who I am. And that makes me want to honor who each other person is too. And so I feel like cards are just a way for everybody who's interested. It's like a self-help book, but you can touch it. You can see it outside of yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, it can confirm the things that you probably are already picking up on. That's a long answer to your question, but I really enjoy using card decks for that purpose, and creating them has been really healing for me.
Yeah. And, don't even worry about, going on. Like, I mean, it's a joy to hear, everybody's story and journey and everything like that. So, and just sort of, with that being said, like, I don't at all, as much as I enjoy the cards and the textile experience and everything like that, I by no means say, well, this is all there there is, like I still seek other resources and things like that. So and then that sort of leads into another question, but before we get there, I want to hear from Linda. So yes.
Hey.
So
yeah. I grew up with a single parent, so single mom. She came from a non-religious household, but they were very like strict with her still. So she just raised me like I didn't have to, like, usually as children you have to follow like certain rules, sure, but my mom was not really pressed for education. She was more about creativity, more about freedom, more about like learning how to have me learn, but more freely, I suppose. So when she was raising me, we didn't have like a lot of history because we had no family. It was just me and her in Canada, nobody else. So we just like, I would read lots of stories, and I think that's why my deck is heavily animal based, is that I would just reach for like how stories and like how families would actually interact. And I would take in lots of I grew up without TV, so I didn't have a lot of like stimulus or like stuff like that. Like I remember when Nightmare Before Christmas came to theaters, I went to watch it and I thought it was terrifying, and it was the scariest movie ever, and I couldn't understand why they captured Santa. I like was beyond me. So I think I looked to stories and animals, and I didn't have people like around me that I like new, I guess, you know, to like tie in ancestors or anything. I had none of that. And then my mom was super into meditation. So when I was young, I was sitting and meditating every day since I was like very little. So I still carry that a bit, but when I was a teenager, I fell out of it a bit. But that kept me pretty grounded overall. And now I like religion because they all have such good stories, and all the stories have like different meanings, and I very much enjoy that, like, of most religions. So yeah, a little different, but yeah.
Well, you know, and we welcome differences, right? Like, I mean, life would be really boring if we were all exactly the same, right? So, you know, that's what keeps everything interesting, is that, you know, we all have different journeys, and you know, there are similarities in certain aspects, but you know, but it's all unique, and that is, you know, and being accepting and open to that is, you know, what is, again, sort of goes back to the whole motto, my motto of, you know, living and listening and learning, right? Like, I mean, you know, we live our lives, we go through our journeys, we listen to ourselves, we you know, listen to others, and you know, being open and receptive to the differences, and learn along the way, right? And having that sort of thirst for knowledge, and being able to use what we learn, you know, to better ourselves and better society. So yeah. So sort of leading into what my next question was, you know, what are some of, you know, favorite resources? Like, you know, like, I think just sort of before we started recording, and I was talking about, you know, of course, my love of tarot and oracle, and every one of your decks, except with the exception of Kara, whose deck I still don't have just yet, but it's coming up mass market, so that's exciting. But you know, each deck is so unique in you know, again, going back to that uniqueness and you know, and the difference, but they all have something that they bring to the table in regards to healing and you know, introspection and all of that. It's a different approach. I mean, mind you, they're all, you know, textile, they're all cards, they're all beautifully illustrated in their own way, and of course, you know, the meanings, and you know, not I think we have, out of everyone here, there's 2 tarot decks and the rest are oracles. So they have different approaches as well. But you know, they all sort of work hand in hand. You know, and also, you know, so that for me is one of the things, you know, prayer, therapy. I am, you know, I see, I have my counselor that I see, you know, on a bi-weekly basis. You know, so of course, you know, there's that aspect. You know, I don't just look to my cards and things like that. You know, I am on medication, you know, to help manage my anxiety and my depression, and the fact that I am OCD. So you know, so all of those things are, you know, how I'm managing my mental health. But you know, but the spirituality aspect is what works sort of in collaboration with those other things that are definitely the bigger part of it, that is, you know, helps me to sort of maintain my everyday. Because, you know, yes, I take my medication on a daily basis, or at least supposedly supposed to, but you know, there's that, but that doesn't always help sort of manage the everyday of life situations that, you know, go through, and having to be able to sort of sort through that and, manage my emotions that way. And therapy, well, that's on a bi-weekly basis. So it's not, every day. So in between those times, I still have to be able to function, and so, it was said before, it's a way to sort of keep me in the present and grounded, and to be able to sort of manage, myself on a daily basis. So, and even, the things around me, and, what, the interactions that I have with others, and, things that I have going on. So, yeah, and I love to read. Books are another big thing for me, which is also why I love a really good guidebook. And it disappoints me when there are really beautiful decks that come out, and either the guidebook is like either skimmed on, or there's no guidebook at all. So I definitely love having that opportunity to hear the artist, the creator, or slash artist thoughts on, how they've interpreted, and where they're coming from in regards to their creation. So that's also awesome. And honorable mention, one of the sort of greatest books that I've come to really appreciate, in more recently, and of course, for such a long time, is definitely one of my most so inspired YouTube creators who wrote the book, and that is Lisa Papez, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. And she wrote the book, the Self-Worth Path, and she's also she's actually both a friendly neighbor from the other side of the border, but is now in, on our side of the border in Canada, living on the West Coast with her beautiful wife, Peggy, who makes these wonderful bags that fit all of your beautiful tarot decks. And I, absolutely fall in love with. And it's such a joy to go in the shop when I get a new deck to be able to like match the, the deck to the bag, or the bag to the deck. So, yeah. So, and hopefully as I'm doing this, hoping to do this annually, hopefully she can join next year and be a part of this, wonderful discussion. So yeah, so that's my favorite resources, thus far. The other one would be the Reclaim Oracle, honorable mention for Marion Costentin, who was supposed to join us and unfortunately isn't here. But yeah, so I guess we'll continue in the order. What are your favorite resources that you sort of turn to, in regards to spirituality, mental health, that sort of thing?
So you'd like to continue in the same order?
Yeah, let's.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say, when it comes to mental health, and just to be clear, I'm not a mental health professional by any means. I have done a lot of coaching, both as an empowerment coach who's trained in neuro-linguistic programming, which isn't like woo programming. It's actually understanding how language works with neurology to help people find resources within themselves. So I've done a lot of that, but that is different and separate from spirituality, which is different and separate from good mental health. And so I would say that, what's important to me is to have resources in every area of my life. And I really advocate for that for people, because and this is actually something that I love about tarot, and I'll pull this all together in a minute. I know it seems kind of disparate right now, but one thing I love about tarot is that it's this system, and it's a very strict system, but it's so complex, and it pulls together metaphor right? Like we were talking earlier about stories, right, Linda? You were talking about stories. And the amazing thing about stories is that as people understand stories, right? Because it's metaphor. You can get at really difficult concepts when you think about story, you think about pictures, right? Pictures in tarot, the art is relaying a concept, it's relaying archetypes and ideas, and it pulls together all these complex things into a single card. And so all that is to say that I'm a big believer in having all sorts of resources in every area of your life. So for me, what that means and what that looks like is that I also take care of, starting with physical health. I take care of my physical health. So I have activities that I regularly do, and I've over time found community that but community that is genuinely healthy, right? Where it's genuinely about the health and the well-being. And then, for mental health, when you need to go talk to a therapist, go talk to a therapist, right? There is a time to go for a reading and there's a time to talk to a therapist, and those are different scenarios. And so I also, am very grateful for, over the years, when I have needed to access counseling services, I have accessed them and say so proudly. And anytime that I have needed it, because sometimes life happens, suddenly something unexpected happens that brings up past traumas, or maybe part of trauma that I have worked on. But, there was something that was forgotten and hidden from years ago. And oh, wow, suddenly I'm remembering something from 3 decades ago. Amazing. And so during those times, it means that I book another appointment with, the trauma therapist that I have worked with over the years. And so I think it's really helpful to have access to those kinds of resources, as well as when it comes to spiritual resources. Yeah, having readers that sometimes when you're really close to an issue, I'm someone, I do readings like the rest of us for myself all the time, but sometimes, occasionally, and maybe this will resonate with some of you, where there's an issue that you're just too close to, or you really what outcome you want, and what cards you want to be seeing, what messages you want to be seeing, and you don't want to kid yourself. And so you go to someone else to get a fresh perspective. So I do also have other readers that, that over the years, I've come to, to really trust and have, great relationship with. And so, I also have folks that I will go to for that. But I read for myself every day. I journal every day. I have energetic and spiritual practices that I do every day. I meditate every day. These are practices that I do every day that, as Cara put it, it's about helping myself to remind myself that I can trust myself, and particularly as someone who has a female gender identity. We're raised societally to not trust ourselves, to double guess ourselves, to doubt ourselves, to diminish ourselves. And so that takes, a lot of effort goes into that. And so it takes a lot of effort on our part to unlearn that and to rebuild new patterns of trusting our intuition, trusting our judgment, trusting that we are seeing things clearly. And so all of those spiritual practices, I really rely on to help build that up. And in addition to that, I use regular playing cards. I can read regular playing cards, Lenormand, Tarot, Oracle, love cartomancy, obviously. And like I said earlier on, I have those other spiritual practices as well, with ancestral veneration, and as well as specific divine beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just as you were saying, I totally forgot. So yeah, locally speaking, there's a particular bookstore that or spirituality bookstore, resource, whatever you call it, metaphysical shop, that I go to, and a trusted reader reads the Akashic records. And I've had my Akashic records read more than once. And yeah, so that's one of the things too that I like to, be able to access, every so often, when, there's something that I feel like, there's more than what I'm seeing, and why is certain things happening that sort of can't really be explained, or that I can't really, what's the word, dive into, sort of in the 3D with, with my counselor. So, when I need to shed light on that, there's a reader for it. So yeah, like, very well said. So thank you. So I guess we'll go next with Murphy.
Yay, hi. Yeah, in terms of resources, I think one of the huge biggest steps I took in caring for my well-being and mental health in the past couple of years has been strengthening my network and community. And so I spent a lot of time just and energy like connecting with people and strengthening the friendships I have, and just like making sure that like it's like solid. And that was huge, because I think in like sort of the darkest moments of like our like mental health, like the deepest valleys, you kind of convince yourself that nobody is around you. And the more you reiterate to yourself and remind yourself that like, no, actually look at all these people, especially at a time when we're also so isolated, and like, I barely go out anymore because of, circumstances right now. So like, it's so easy to forget, because literally out of sight, out of mind. Like, I'm like, I don't see anybody, and it's just me in this shoebox. But then, yeah, every time I feel like the walls closing in and feeling like I'm alone, I have like a list of people who have verbally told me, if you're in trouble, if you need somebody to talk to, I will drop everything and I'll talk with you. And that list has saved my life so many times. So yeah, that's like just my biggest anchor, I think. And in terms of like internal work, I definitely have also an eclectic approach too, with like everything from, work with my therapist to like, I haven't really explored medication yet, but I'm definitely trying to kind of introduce that idea a little bit. I recently started smoking weed, which like has helped a lot.
I think you are quite a bit of the population, so
yeah,
no judgment there at all, right?
I was so scared of it too, because I had my family history of like psychosis and mental, like there's a connection. So I was like really scared that I might like trigger something that would make me, no longer like, like lose my sense of reality or something. And like, I think at some point I was like, the fear of that is stronger than like the risk of actually, you know what I mean? Like it felt like I felt grounded in myself enough to be like, I think I can take this step and be okay. Like, and it was that sense of safety that made me realize like I have I trust my decisions and I trust myself. So yeah, I think that was helpful. So like kind of sort of it's medicine in a way, I guess. Like every dude I've ever dated who was like a stoner has always tried to convince me to smoke, was like, it's an ancient medicine. And I'm like, I know, but I'm scared of like literally family history and but like it was, the important thing was like getting to the point by myself. Like every decision I've made for different things that I use as resources was something that I had to come to on my own. Everything from like reconnecting with spirituality to like getting therapy, like people have told me before, and I was like, I don't know, I don't think it's for me. And then yeah, it's been like a journey, and reconnecting with my culture has been really helpful too. Like I started studying like Korean shamanism and realizing the connection between like people who are like like all of the little connections between like people who may have experienced trauma to like people who are inclined towards like, you know, healing themselves and healing others, and the like connection between that and like neurodivergence, and like there's so many different like interesting things that kind of tie it all together, and it really helps to create a more empowering story for myself. Like I love the idea of storytelling as well. Like it's this like because that's how our brain works. We take this information and line it up in a way that makes sense for us, and we could be living somebody else's story that we didn't know about. And that was part of my journey into like realizing my own queerness, and like was like, whose story am I paying attention to? Whose story am I like telling myself? And I realized I could make my own story. And one of the biggest resources I have also is I started drawing comics about mental health and things I'm going through on Instagram and sharing them. And eventually I realized it was resonating with other people and made me feel less alone. And in the process, I also, it forced me to transmute my like darkest thoughts into something more hopeful, because a lot of my people reading my comics ended up being younger queer kids who were depressed. And I'm just like, I cannot like post a nihilistic comic that is just like everything is pointless. Like, you know, I have to have that seed of hope for them. And in the process, I force myself to see the light in every situation. So yeah, those are sort of things that have helped me kind of push through and kind of reach this place I am here today.
And that's awesome. Like, you know, like again, like as you talk about yourself, it triggers another thing that I forgot about, right? Like, you know, the people that we have around us and our support system, and you know, and one of my biggest supporters is my mom, who has come to be my if you will lifeline, and you know, has been one of the greatest supports for me that I've had, and I can't be any more grateful to her. You know, and just, you know, for her to know how yeah, I'm having one of those moments, so I'm trying to contain myself. But for her to know how much it means to me, you know, she knows, you know, my struggle, and she's there for me. She's somebody I can call in the middle of the night if I'm having a crisis and I need to talk. So, you know, and she does the best that she can to support me, and so I'm grateful and I'm thankful, and you know, my gratitude is probably beyond expression at this point. And I probably could, you know, I will try, but will never be able to, you know, repay her in this lifetime. But basically just, you know, what she offers me and what she gives me, is also part of why I guess I'm so driven to do that for others, you know, and because of the love that I've received from her has, I guess in a way I idolize that, you know, and everybody is deserving of that, you know. We all have our things, right? So so yeah, and you know, and that's amazing. And you know, don't feel bad about smoking weed. It's legal now, so it's all good. You know, but of course with everything in moderation, right? Like, I mean, that's the thing. We have to be careful about the things that we sort of use to help ourselves in overindulging can also be, you know, an issue. And I definitely have, you know, my vice as well that I could speak on, but that would be, you know, a whole nother thing, you know, topic. So yeah, so, you know, Carol, what about you?
Well, it's really fun, first of all, to hear what everybody has to say. I think for me, one of the biggest resources that I use is to just go outside. Nature is so influential in everything that I've ever made. I feel like just being outside and going on a walk, or just sitting, even if it's just something simple like walking around my suburban neighborhood or sitting in my backyard. It doesn't have to be, I live in the middle of Iowa. It doesn't have to be going to some, like to the ocean or the mountains, which I would love to be able to do. But for me, learning to appreciate the place where I live and just go outside and enjoy that local ecosystem has been a tremendous resource. That's where I get a lot of ideas, is when I'm outside. And the Prairie Deck is inspired by the fact that Amy and I, the artist, we live in land that used to be prairie as far as you could see. And so when I was dropping in to ask, you know, what does this deck want to be about? That's what the whole thing just dropped in. And so I think like as far as resources, just appreciating where I am, where I live, and enjoying that has been really helpful. The other thing that's really a big part of my practice is to write. I'm a writer first and foremost. And when I really related to what Murphy said about when you're writing these comics and you're sharing them and you're aware of how they might influence other people, it helps you to frame it in a way or find a new perspective or learn something else about it. And so when I sit down to write, I take that very seriously. And I won't share something I've written unless I feel like I got that green light, that it is something that I should share. And so for me, dropping into that space where I write is really healing, and it helps me. When I'm in that place, I have so much confidence and so much trust in myself. And then it's when I come out of that and I'm sharing the writing that I'm like, you know, you get into that human mindset again. But I love to write poetry. I love to, I'm working on a book right now. I really enjoy writing. And then I have a lot of friends that do, you know, astrology or Reiki or card readings. And so we do trades, and that's really helpful. And I have close family members and friends that, like you, all of you have said, that you can call when you really need help. And then I enjoy reading books and reading different writers online. I've just had a lot of different teachers come and go in my life. So
Nice, very nice. And that's awesome. Yeah, like you see, again, there's another thing that I forgot about. Like, you know, I write poetry. I don't write very often, but you know, I have, you know, throughout the years, throughout, you know, my teenage life and childhood and stuff like that. So, you know, that has something, you know, journaling was always something that I really enjoyed. Unfortunately, you know, it's only now and more sort of recent years, or even, you know, even to present, where I sort of taken up, you know, journaling a little bit more. I kind of did away with it, not because I didn't enjoy writing and expressing myself through the written word, but because of the fact that I guess I traumatized because my privacy was invaded, and things that, you know, that I expressed, you know, without my permission was, you know, was dived into and read and then used against me. So, you know, in some sort of form or fashion. So I had done, for a long time, sort of did away with that. But you know, there is it and even in therapy and stuff like that, you hear about, you know, everybody has this, it's the same commonality. Journaling is very therapeutic, and you know, it helps to sort of, you know, be able to understand and process our thoughts and things like that. So that being also a bigger practice, which I'm trying to do a little bit more of. I tend to, you know, keep everything in that respect, keep it to myself and sort of store everything up here. But the problem is this never shuts off, which is probably why I have such a hard time sleeping too. So, you know, there's that, you know, so yeah. And Linda?
Hey, so resources. I would just probably, I'm gonna go back, but yeah, like as a child, and I didn't have TV, you play everything out with toys. I feel like or that's how I remember playing, is I would play out circumstances and then how different characters would deal with different circumstances. And I think because, I don't know, my mom just let me, I think I played a lot longer than other children did. And I was an only child, so who's there to judge me? So I think I found tarot quite early on in my teens because I had to give toys. So I found the tarot as a very like interesting set. Like at the time, I don't think I really knew what the rules or like set characters were, but I could see by the pictures that they were all different characters and that they were all doing different things. And so I think I was very interested in laying out the cards in different ways and seeing how the characters would interact with each other. So I really like that. They were definitely not a good tool for when I was a teenager. I'm like, just want to pull the like one card, like the Lover's card or whatever, the Magician, you know, the few cool cards. But I definitely think it kept like the idea of play in my life in a way maybe I didn't know at the time. And I used to journal a lot, but like somebody reads it, you never want to journal again. It's like too much. But when I got older, I read The Artist's Way, which is all about journaling, but a little bit more in the morning. And it's not so much, you don't even really have to write anything. You're just, even if it's just one word all over the page. So that kind of got me back into journaling and more like adding a lot more drawings and doodles into it, which was nice. And then tarot kind of came back and I was old enough to kind of like read the guidebook and sort of understand. And I had been doing a lot I read Women Who Run with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkelos. And I loved it that she loved stories. And I was like, as like a teen, you're told that stories are for children. And then to be recognized as adults still read them, or like there's something deeper in them, I really enjoyed that. So I kind of dived back into reading sort of fairy tales and like legends and all that kind of stuff that I really loved. And then it was fun with the tarot. I think it sort of started to click together, the archetypes and like people and you know how. And then as you grow up, I was a hairdresser for quite a long time, and lots of people tell a story more than once. But it's interesting to see how stories are still in our lives, even if we don't know that we're telling the story over and over and over and over. So I thought that was super interesting. And then I what else do I like Carolyn Miss. She's very interesting. She talks about like prayer as a story and like how developing that like connection with source in only a positive way, and like how, I don't know, I just really loved her. And then I found Michael Singer, which I've been listening to a solid, I'm also like a little more audio. I don't know if it's just, but I have his audio tapes and I love them. And I've been listening to him for like 5 years solid. Every few months, I'll put it back on. When I find something that I like or I feel connected to, I listen to it over and over to try to develop different ideas on the same topic. So I love Michael Singer. It's all about the mind, and he calls the part that doesn't be quiet is the roommate. And why would you listen to this roommate that's unguided you so many times? And then in paired with Carolyn Miss, it's a lot about intuition. And I love that stories are about intuition generally, in like old fairy tales, it's very much like, don't look at the face, listen to like what's going around you, the creatures that tell you, the trees that tell you, you know, like everything's whispering to them all the time. So I love all those things. But yeah, I feel like journaling, listening to like positive like audio for me really like sits a bit quicker. Sometimes if I'm like all anxious and stuff and I try to read, it like doesn't go in. It's like my brain is louder than the words on the paper. And then I still like tarot because it's visual. Like, so if I pull an oracle card or a tarot card, my mind tries to like see everything. So I find that actually quite calming, is even just to like pull cards and like look at what's in the images behind them or around them or the colors. Yeah, and I guess I have like the opposite. I always feel like I'm relaxing too much, so I'm always trying to like move like in a valued way, like you clean or work, or it's always has to be something, rather than I always feel like, I don't know if it's from bad school teachers, but like I feel like I don't do, like everything needs to be productive. So but I have no problem relaxing. So it's more like, I don't know, I have sort of a funny, yeah, where I can very much relax, but I would like to be doing something. I don't know. It's interesting. So tarot and cards really help with that calming down, still playing, and like I don't usually do larger tarot spreads. I pull like cards throughout the day if I'm having like, I can see that my energy is changing, or I like am confused on what to start or what to do. I pull a card, which really helps like guide me. So I guess like less readings and more just like guidance reminders, or like what, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, I love images, so I love cards and oracle cards. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's like, it's just so great to like hear, you know, when everybody, you know, their take on stuff, and what, you know, what gives them joy, what helps them, you know, is in the process. I had a point I was going to make in something that you said earlier, but then it's like gone. So I guess, you know, like you know, we've been talking for, you know, over an hour now, and you know, I actually have, I had other questions too that I wanted, but you know, like, you know, when you have this many people and everybody has something definitely they're passionate about and they have to, you know, speak about it, you know, it's time flies, right? So, but I guess sort of just to close, you know, sort of cram 3 questions like all into one, basically, you know, what are your thoughts on the topic of mental health and the current stigma, and how people, you know, sort of your interactions with other people who, you know, either don't get it, or, you know, or do get it, but maybe don't necessarily talk about it. What are some things that you know, would like to see sort of being improved, you know, around mental health, and, you know, and the acceptance of it within society, and, you know, and just sort of how you believe the past 2 years has affected us on a whole, right? You know, and that kind of thing. So, you know, just sort of to wrap up, and of course your own whatever personal experience in the last 2 years that you can share too, and how that, you know, has been. I would love to hear that. For me, my, you know, like my background is you know, social work. So I, you know, my approach to mental health is definitely sort of from a not only personal experience, but, professionally, my educational background is in social work and things like that. I've worked in the fields in, various areas with different clients, for quite a bit of time, and of course have my own personal experience. But, I think just sort of before we started, recording, I was sort of touching base on that when, in regards to people who don't seem to understand, in regards to that, and sort of dismiss it, or, sort of catalog it as like a phase sort of thing, or, sort of have this way of deeming that, if you don't have it together, then that means you're weak, that kind of thing. And not having that sort of support. I know, even in the workplace for me, and things like that over the years has been quite a struggle. There's still that stigma. There's still the sort of embarrassment that kind of goes along with, with dealing with certain things. And then also, even those that sort of do experience and do suffer from mental health issues, tend to get so wrapped up in their own mental health and what they're experiencing, that they're sort of blinded to the experiences of others, and forgetting to be mindful of that, right? Because they're so the sort of selfish way of being, seeing the world sort of revolving around them, so to speak, and forgetting that they aren't the only ones. And then the other side of that is that feeling alone and not being able to have anybody that you can relate to and who can understand you. So and I the last 2 years has not only have we been going through this this pandemic, but I think with the isolation, and having to isolate has also played a huge role, because it's like everyone's sort of out for themselves, and at the same time are stuck, isolated, feeling alone. So and so there's that disconnection, that has really sort of gone on, and and hoping that as we talk more about it, and we address it as individuals, but in a group as well, like we're doing right now, will help to sort of shed light on that, and we can find a way to sort of I guess close the gap, so to speak, and not only be mindful of one another, but also less hard on ourselves, and be able to support each other through all the difficult times that we will all experience in our lives. Because at the end of the day, as human beings, we are one unfortunate event away from being in someone else's shoes, who is having a difficult time. And I think that, that is often forgotten, especially, like I said, in the workplace and big businesses, when it comes to, big corporations that, we all have to be a part of, where that be, when it comes to our finances and, places that we take services from and stuff like that. And, the banks and credit cards and things like that. So yeah, that's what I have to say on that topic there. So, and again, Malumir, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to be concise in the interest of time. I have a lot of thoughts. I think that mental health, it's not like someone either has their mental health is great or it's not. I think it's just like physical health, which frankly, you're not either perfectly healthy or you're not. You're not either totally fit or you're not. There's a whole range of places that you can be, and it's not static either, right? It's not static. And I think that we haven't even seen anything yet as it pertains to mental health coming out of the current global health crisis. And the reason that I think that, again, not a mental health professional, but just thinking about it rationally, I think that the global health crisis has affected everyone in different ways and for different reasons, right? Whether folks, and regardless of what folks, what their own beliefs are, what their own decisions have been throughout, everyone has been affected in different ways and for different reasons. Some folks actually are just fine with not having to be out and about, right? Some folks are actually doing a lot better, while other folks are feeling isolated, and that's a problem, right? But what about what about the folks who are experiencing significant and severe mental health challenges because of their work that is placing them in danger or increased danger and their colleagues in danger? What about those who are affected by decisions to open things up or to close things up or not, right? And the folks who are affected by different economic realities that have come as a result of the pandemic. People have all been affected in so many different ways and for so many different reasons. And also I think how do I put this? The contrast and the aggression with which so many disparate views have come about. There's always different views and opinions on circumstances and events. But because the entire globe is going through this at the same time, what I've noticed is it's created very loud contrasts that have created additional sources of conflict and other stressors and impacts of mental health and well-being. And so I think we haven't seen anything yet. I think we're still in the middle of a crisis. And in a crisis, what happens in our brains is that our brains neurologically, they do what they need to do to help us survive so that we can get through the crisis. But then there's the after, right? There's the after where what fires together, wires together. And now you have a pairing, a wiring in the brain that neurologically may not actually serve you when things are not in crisis mode, in actual crisis mode. And so I think that there's actually going to be a really long road ahead of us all, where I think that we're all going to need to start talking more openly about mental health. Yes, there is some stigma, but frankly, the stigma is only there because, folks are afraid sometimes to talk about it openly, and that's legitimate, right? There are reasons why people feel afraid, right? Because I think, at least I'll speak for myself, there, especially as someone who is a woman who's working in a male-dominated area, there are already so many challenges that, of either unintentional or unconscious or sometimes willful belief systems that negatively impact you. But I do think also that as a leader, I am in a leadership position that I talk openly about, what, I'm having a tougher mental health day today, because there are days that I am. There are days that are really, really hard, right? There are some days I get off of a meeting and I cry, right? And I'm a tough as nails kind of person, but sometimes you just got to feel what you got to feel. And there's other times that, I'm having a day where, I'm aligned, everything's on fire, it's just moving great. But we need to be able to talk about that, and particularly to remember that regardless of what our situation is in life, we do actually have influence on other people. And the more that we normalize having conversations about mental health and well-being, the more that people feel open to talk about it. Anyway, that was not as concise as I wanted. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I honestly, you know what? Like that answer, I could even say it better myself if I tried. Like everything that beyond what I said that I have thought about, over, the course of my lifetime. Forget even the pandemic, but you said everything in there that I've thought of at one point or another. So thank you so much. Like that was amazing. That was amazing. So yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like fully agree with everything you've said, like about like how, like, I think if we were able to treat, like a bad mental health day, like a day where you feel sick, like literally we call into work sick, but we don't call into work when we're like struggling, like, and I think like once we get to that place, and I think we're taking steps to get there as a society too, because as we go through this globally together, I think being we're all kind of being forced to like reflect a lot on everything that's happening, and this whole disruption is causing, like, it's shedding light on all the things that are kind of need work in our society right now, like and so everything from like if I'm talking about like myself, I questioned my gender like last year. I was like, why do I need hair? And then I shaved my head, and I was like, why was there so much like connected to my hair that I thought about myself, and shedding all these layers and realizing like there's just a lot of like dismantling, basically dismantling everything, and then at the heart of it is like what's most important for us. And like I'm so encouraged by this like more and more conversations around community and around the importance of connection, because that's what was taken from us in a lot of ways, like when we were like forced to isolate, when we had to like kind of be there, and realizing like all of the mutual aid efforts like were what was like keeping people together in the time when we all felt abandoned by like everything, that all the structures that we thought would support us. And so I think there's this like hopefully, like I'm seeing it now too, movement of like people recognizing the importance of like inner and outer health, like everything is holistically like important, everything matters, and it's not just like a black or like a what is it, like binary thing where you're like either like which is like I've okay, totally just jumped and did 3 sentences there, but basically one of the things I love about like kind of the transformation that's been happening is the realization that everyone is different, and that every case is different, and that like in that we are all connected, like in that fact that everyone is unique. And like there's sort of this movement away from labeling and categorizing everybody to like like treat them differently, and it's like we're all like a wonderful mix of like fucked up and like lovely things, like just everything. And to be accepting that wholly and finding belonging in each other is like so crucial, I think, in healing and repairing not just our mental health, but like the society as a whole, which I think has been ill for a very long time. And honestly, it's just, yeah, and it's like the tower card, like you see it and you're like, this is scary, everything's crumbling, the foundation is crumbling before us, like what's happening here? I don't like it. But like I personally got the tarot card, the tower card, like twice in my life, and it bookended the most traumatizing years of my life, and it was wild that happened. But like in that time I had this like just like the most like incredible like self transformation where I was unrecognizable by the end of it, because like it crumbled my like foundation crumbled and I had to build it back up again. And yeah, I think we all have each other as support as we kind of move towards that. And I love Adrienne Marie Brown so much. And do you know Adrienne Marie Brown? Like she wrote oh my god, Emergent Strategy and Pleasure Activism. And a lot of her work talks about the importance of like optimism, or like just like the idea that like what is it, building towards a future that's like, you know, like better future, you need that like resilient like belief that things will be better, and using the power of imagination to do that. And it's like a collective collaborative storytelling where we co-create that reality together.
Awesome. Yeah, like you know, it's actually it's funny that you, as you say that, and again, the whole theme about storytelling, like I know Murphy, you and I like, you know, just last week as we were, you know, having our get to know you discussion about your deck and stuff like that, we went off on a tangent about, you know, movies and like The Matrix and Free Guy and all this stuff. And I think I was even telling you like how history repeats itself, because I finished watching, you know, a YouTube documentary that I saw talking about the Spanish flu, you know, and how like watching that documentary was like, I don't even know if I could really say it, like call it eye-opening, but it was like a mirror deja vu, like experiencing like an entire deja vu, because everything that they experienced during that, you know, the Spanish flu, which happened in 1918, you know, to 1920, is exactly, you know, exactly what we're going through right now. Just, you know, how many years later, we're wearing different clothes. We look, you know, technology is different, but it's exactly, we're in the fifth wave. I think they only had four. So, you know, like, and, you know, I think, Malumir, you were saying earlier that I think you had mentioned about, see, but there was something that you were saying, and I'm trying to remember exactly what that was now as I started and then totally just drew a blank. But like okay, I'm just gonna shut up now because I totally just completely lost it. But there was, anyway, there's a similarity in regards to, you know, what we okay, now I remember. You were talking again about, you know, sort of recovery and getting back to, you know, where we are and things like that, and sort of the recovery stage. And, you know, after the pandemic was sort of over, you know, then in 1920, it took society about 9 years to sort of recover and get back to sort of what it was. And then after they did, shortly after, it combusted again, and then we had the Great Depression. So, and then World War II. So, you know, I mean, who's to say in the next 10 years where we're gonna be at? Hopefully a lot better off than we were before back then. But, you know, like it's history, when it's no joke, when history repeats itself, it really does. Right. And so, you know, sort of living in this sort of parallel universe, and I can go on a whole other tangent talking about Matrix and all of that and where this is all going, but we're not going to go there. So, but yeah. So, and Tara, what about you?
Well, I'll make this quick. My kids are waiting on me to go to bed, but I actually, the thing that kept standing out to me, it was really interesting to hear what Malumir and Murphy were saying, and just these ideas of acceptance and non-judgment. And those are just such key influential themes in everything that I do. And I've lived a very small life these last few years. I mean, we homeschooled my kids for the first year because I work from home. And so I have this little tiny microcosm right now with them. They're back in public school this year, but one of the things that I've noticed with them is I start to see programming that I still hold that judges feelings and that doesn't accept them. And I think I'm just a small example of the bigger problem, you know, but I'll notice myself with my kids. Like, it's uncomfortable when they're having a meltdown or when they're sulking or when they're mad and throwing something at their sister. Like, that's not fun for anybody, you know? And I've caught myself so many times just doing what was done to me as a kid, which was like, cut it out, stop. You have to just stop doing that. And it's been a really good experience for me to be more intentional when they're having a hard time. How can I help? How can I teach them that they don't need to be afraid of their feelings, that their feelings aren't in the driver's seat, that they do, like Murphy was saying, that idea of this resilient optimism and choosing to come back to that and to imagine and create this new thing. So I find myself saying to them all the time lately, okay, you're feeling these big feelings. Does it help to cry? Is that what you need to do? Does it help to kind of lead them through that? But then to also teach them the flip side of that, which is, okay, once you've cried and once you've let all those feelings out, it's very easy to keep yourself there. And you can keep piling it on and thinking of more reasons to keep crying, but you don't have to. You know, I think that's the two sides of the coin that I'm kind of seeing myself try to show them of, don't judge whatever feeling you're having, but you're not a victim to it either. And when you're ready, when you've let that feeling speak its feelings, then you get to make a choice about, oh, I'm going to go and do something that makes me happy. I'm going to go draw. I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go snuggle with the cats, whatever. And so I think as a society, going back to your bigger question of what would help with the stigmas around mental health, I think it's just for all of us to get a lot more comfortable in the moments when people are having the big feelings. Like, that doesn't mean they're bad or wrong or out of control. It's just, it's okay to have feelings. That's part of why we're here, is to feel things and to learn from that. And so I would love to see, you know, for the new generations that are growing up, for them to have a totally different set of programming and conditioning in their childhood that gives them tools and helps them to not be afraid or judge what they're feeling. And I think that lays a foundation for, oh, wow, I know what that's like to be in those feelings. Somebody else is feeling that. I can have compassion for them. I can support them. I can not try to jump in and fix them or make them just stop freaking out. I can sit with them in that space and know what it feels like. So.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And Linda?
Hey, I have big feelings around mental health, but I just feel like I have imagination, but I know that if I don't have children, but if I was in school the last few years, with my budget growing up, with my ability to learn the way they want you to learn, I know I wouldn't have made the last 2 years. I would have fallen out. I would have dropped out of school. I would have been the people that don't graduate. I would have been like, you know, those, especially because I went to a school where it wasn't only studies. We got to do, that's how I moved into hairdressing. It was also very like tactile. They teach you how to fix cars, hairdressing, I don't know, like other cooking, like trades. So also, if you already have a problem learning, you have the pandemic, you can't afford a computer, you might not have internet, you might not have a space to learn. I just like know that I probably wouldn't have made it through like the pandemic so far. Now I'm older, so whatever. I'm lucky. Not everybody is. And I know that the mental health system already doesn't work. Like having the police come pick up your sister, your mother, your grandparent, your best friend, you, is like not healthy. There is no program to like help somebody who gets taken in right away. Everyone just wants you out of the hospital. You know, there's really like very little care like in our systems. So I do hope that over this next year or two, or, you know, as soon as possible, we have free mental health care, we have a different division that comes in to like help families. And like, if you have an emergency, it should be somebody else that comes, because I do think we'll have a lot more of it in the future. And I think having a safe understanding of it and how it should be approached and what resources actually people like need, like people don't even know. Like, I just feel like everyone's like, you know, but you're like, I can't afford it. I don't have resources. I might not have an address. I might like, there's just, it's like, I just feel like we don't really have a plan for mental health at all as a society. And I do hope that within the next year, because I do think that like, it's not only the kids that probably fell through, it's probably people that had just started a job, people that had just like it's crazy. Like I can't, like, yeah, I can't imagine. So I do hope that as a collective, we are like, this is something that actually needs to be approached and actually like work it into our care for people and not charge for it. I think it should be totally free, totally covered. And I think it should be for all ages. And it shouldn't be such a chore to like figure out how to like reach people and in a safe environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just having to advocate for yourself, you know, that can be really hard. You know, and I think, you know, I feel blessed in the fact that because, you know, I have that sort of professional experience sort of working in the field, I know a little bit of the ins and outs and, you know, what is available, you know, and even, you know, sort of customer service and, you know, over 20 years customer service experience and, you know, having that sort of service like experience on both ends of the spectrum, being, you know, being a service user as well as working, you know, in the service, knowing what can and cannot be done, and what is available. I'm privileged to have that advantage to know what I can access. Not everybody has that knowledge. Not everybody knows. And that can be very difficult when you feel alone. And so, you know, that's also part of, you know, my sort of my goal in creating this channel and sort of building this community is, you know, being able to, you know, for like-minded individuals to share their experiences, to share their knowledge with each other, and just support one another. So, you know, with that being said, I want to thank, you know, each and every one of you again for joining me on this, you know, and having this discussion. It means so much to me, and I'm sure it will, you know, means so much to everyone who, you know, globally, who has had some level of struggle or knows somebody who is, you know, struggling. And I'm hoping that this will share a little, you know, shed a little bit more light on the subject matter and the importance, and just sort of, you know, be able to you know, to give us a not only a better understanding, but how we can better, you know, support one another, and not be divided, but, you know, come together, you know, for not only a good cause, but, you know, but for ourselves, because at the end of the day, we are all connected, and, you know, you know, this world doesn't function if we are going to be divided. And I don't just mean, you know, even as people being divided, but even, you know, our entire environment, you know, and having that sort of respect for not only each other, but even for, you know, our ecosystem, and having everything sort of work together. So, you know, with that being said, I'm going to have all your guys' information linked below. I will even throw in resources, you know, that in Canada that I am aware of that people can access if they're having a hard time, and asking, you know, for those that are, you know, other places, you know, our wonderful neighbors who have come to, you know, join us in this discussion. You know, if there are other resources that you guys are aware of that you can share, I would love to know, so I can also link that below. And, you know, anybody can join us in this discussion, you know, in the comments below what their experience is and what, you know, they, you know, whatever information that they're aware of that maybe, you know, other people don't know. You know, let's keep the conversation going, and let's just, you know, be able to support one another. So I again, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you all. And, you know, as we depart, you know, continue in the name of love, you know, live, listen, learn, and just, yeah, that's it. And, you know, I'm giving you guys a virtual hug to each and every one of you. And I can't wait to, you know, be able to connect with you guys again in, you know, whatever shape or form or capacity that is, whether it be, you know, on camera or even off. You know, I'm making friends for life, and that means the world to me. So especially from spending, you know, nearly 40 years feeling, you know, sort of in some shape or form alone, and, you know, on a pathway all on my own. I'm not alone. And it's these little moments that bring that reminder back home for me. So I can't express, you know, enough how much that means to me. And I hope means, you know, the world to everyone else as well. So thank you. And we'll talk again soon. I hope that you guys all have a wonderful, you know, enjoy the rest of your day, your night. You know, we're all in different time zones. So, you know, for me, it's almost, you know, for me in Malumir, it's 9:55 right now, but for you guys, probably, you know, an hour or 2 or 3 difference from then. So yeah, thank you so much. Take care, everybody.
You take care.
Gotta love one another. Gotta love one another. Gotta love one another. Gotta love one another. No matter what people want you to believe, don't ever turn back on your dreams. It's all in your hands, a change is needed.